Welcome to the Brisbane Lions Big Footy Podcast. I'm Keegs and I'm going to be joined by Ollie to dissect the Essendon game. We're going to talk about if it was an honourable loss or one that got away for the boys, and then we'll look at Stefan Martin's big game, what to do with Daniel Rich, and then look ahead to the Saints at Etihad this Sunday. Finally, we're going to wrap up the AFLW season with the award winners from the Brisbane Lions. Let's do it. All right, Ollie, welcome to episode 2 of the Big Footy Brisbane Lions podcast. We're actually called, we were described as making public transport bearable in episode 1. So I think that's a good way to get the ball rolling.
No, we'll go with that.
Obviously, we're not talking on the terms we were last weekend after a good win. This time we went down to the Bombers by 27 points. Obviously we're a bit flat in probably the first and especially the second quarter, but the third quarter was pretty inspiring footy in the way we fought back and took the lead. But just ran out of legs, and I think the class of Essendon sort of got them over the top in the end.
Yeah, it was a disappointing second quarter. They really didn't fire a shot, and it was probably harking back to last year at times where we just really had flat periods. But to our credit, we really showed a lot of fight in the second half of that second quarter, and then go into the third quarter where we just played some brilliant footy, some of the best footy we've played in probably the last 3 or 4 years. It was just so exciting to see. But yeah, I think we just used too much energy getting back into the game. We're 42 points down, so it's always pretty hard to come back from that sort of position.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
We were able to get in front early in that last quarter when Hipwood kicked that amazing goal, and it was just so much excitement about him.
But I feel like we might be saying that a bit this year. Amazing goal from Hipwood.
I hope so. He was brilliant. But yeah, Essendon, I think, they just had too much left in the tank at the end, and we just looked really flat in the last 10, 15 minutes. We had our chances. Louis Taylor, probably, a couple of chances. One, he'd probably like his time over again. And Zorko's 50-metre penalty as well. He knew it straight away. He pushed the Essendon player, and it was an automatic 50, and he knew it. Just the look on his face. So that was a really costly 50 as well. But there was a lot to like, but still very disappointing that we didn't get the win.
I thought we'd start by talking about some of the numbers, the stats from the game, because they were pretty impressive reading, actually. We won clearances 41-31, which is something we've struggled with over the last few years, and we actually won inside 50s, 55-53, and contested possessions, 149-141. So I think the indicators are there that we're playing well, because certainly contested possessions is something we struggled with in the last few years. So I feel like on face value, there's some good signs there.
Oh, some really good signs there. And it's a funny old game footy because we lost most of those areas against Gold Coast, but we still won the game.
Yeah.
Whereas this week we were able to win a lot of those key areas and we lost. So it's just one of those things, footy at times. But
I suppose the difference between this week and last week is we probably made the most of our chances last week, whereas this week, as you said, Louis Taylor, I think he had 5 shots on goal for 1 goal, and Hipwood 5 shots for 2 goals.
For sure. But Stefan Martin really got us on top in that third quarter in the ruck. He was just sensational, and it was such a good quarter, but it was sort of disappointing at the same time we didn't capitalise like that in the first half, because where they really got on top Essendon in that second quarter was the clearances. They were just killing us, and there was nothing we could do about it. But then, we always had the advantage there with Steph Martin against McKernan, not really a recognised ruckman in there. So Steph just really got on top, but at the same time, it would have been good to see that a bit earlier.
Yeah, so Steph finished the game with 23 touches and 42 hitouts, and as you said, against McKernan, undersized, sort of makeshift ruckman in the absence of Leuenberger and Bellchambers. But he was really the driving force for us in that third quarter. Someone who didn't get going until the last quarter was Daniel Rich. Up until 3-quarter time, he had 5 touches, and I think Cameron Ling on the telecast was pretty critical of him. To his credit, Rich did get going in that last term, and he actually did cop a bit of battering. I think Danaher got the knee into his hamstring or bum or something that would have left him a bit sore. But That's been Daniel Rich's problem for a while, isn't it? Like just staying in games for a long time and making the most of his possessions. He just can't get into it at the moment.
Yeah, it's really disappointing because when he does have the ball in hand, there's probably not many better kicks in the AFL, and it's been like that for a long time where he's just such a great kick, and if he does find it, he can either kick a goal or set up a goal or set up playoff half-back. So, yeah, they were really getting stuck into him on the telecast.
Yeah.
Darcy as well, Cameron Ling, they were really critical of him, but you have to go back to that first quarter, like you mentioned. He got a couple of really big hits, and I think that might have had a bit of an impact.
Yeah, he might have been a bit sore.
Yeah, he just really hasn't gone to that elite level that we thought he might after he won that Rising Star. And he sort of goes in and out of games, but he's never going to be one of those guys that gets 30, 35 possessions a game.
No.
But even if he does get 20, 25 possessions, especially if he can kick it 15 to 20 times, we're going to probably win more games than we lose, just with how amazing he is with that long left kick.
I think you're right. He's never going to be a high possession getter, but to have 5 touches in 3 quarters as one of the leaders of the footy club, it wasn't good enough. And for me, the thing he's struggling with is his role. He's playing that sort of midfielder who rests forward, but when he gets forward, he sort of looks a bit lost, doesn't make the leads, and he kicked a goal, and he's often in range. It's not hard to get Daniel Rich in range. But, I think he's really struggling playing forward of the ball rather than in defence or off half-back when he can sort of, get a few cheapies and get going that way. So,
yeah, and he has probably struggled with a tagger for most of his career. If he has a really hard tag or just a lot of defensive pressure on him, then he doesn't have the pace to break away from a tag or a really big defensive role. So, yeah, it's just something he's got to work at. And being, 26, he probably needs to work that out sooner rather than later. So I'm sure he'll come good. That was just an off night, and I reckon those hits early would have had something to do with it. And I'm sure on the indoor arena at Etihad, well, if it's open, I'm sure he'll have a really good game against the Saints this week.
So we'll preview the Saints game a bit later on, but do you think at this stage he's under any threat to lose his spot? Like, is it sort of crisis time in that regard, or do you think he's got a few runs on the board, a few credits in the bank that, an odd off game like the Essendon game, we can sort of look the other way and back him in to bounce back next week?
Oh, you got to give him a few more chances. Only round 2. He's had one pretty bad game. He was okay against the Suns without being groundbreaking, but yeah, I think we've got to give him a few more chances, especially being a vice captain, a leader in the side, and what he can do when he has a good game. I think far outweighs if he does have a bad game, but we just need to see more consistency from him, which would be great to see. And I think, that will see us win a lot more games than we lose. But yeah, I think he's safe for a few more weeks, but he wouldn't want to put in too many more performances like he did in the first 3 quarters on Saturday night.
Before we move on to the St Kilda game, as you mentioned, we're actually going to have a little debate, mate. You ready to lock horns?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're going to talk about this week, was it an honourable loss to Essendon or one that got away, mate?
Nah, one that got away for sure. Come on, we only had the second quarter. It was probably 15 minutes where we lost the game. Just a fade out in that 15 minutes during the second quarter. And other than that, we're right in. That first quarter was really solid, even though Essendon came out guns blazing. They were playing some good footy, but so were we. But we really just faded and just had that lapse that really cost us in games last year. So I think we have to see it as one that got away if we want to become a really successful club again. I think Chris Fagan did a really good job in the press conference afterwards and just getting that point across that, yes, there were some good signs there, but we should have won that game. All the areas pointed, the key indicators pointed to us winning that game, but it was just that really poor, I think it was 8 goals in a row at one stage, and you just can't have that happen. We just have to work and find ways of just not letting teams get runs on, because that's just all too common the last few years, and we've got to stop that. So I think Eddie's the one that got away, but there were some good signs there.
I think Chris Fagan obviously agreed with you in the way that he took his presser on, but I'm going to come from the opposite angle and say it was an honourable loss, because I think you have to consider where we're coming from. Last year we had a percentage of 61.6 and the average losing margin was 60 points. After the second quarter, we fought back and we took the lead. And I think if that second quarter, had that been last year, we would have folded and lost by 10 goals for sure. Like, that was on the cards. And as you said earlier, like, it just felt like, oh, here we go again. This is last year. But what a lot of people don't realise is that the 2017 Brisbane Lions is pretty much the same as last year. I mean, Beams is back, that's true, and we've thrown in Frost and Barrett. But overall, it's essentially the 2016 Lions. We've got no draftees in the team yet. They'll come in over the coming weeks. And in my opinion, you have to regard that as a big tick for the coaching staff and how they've been able to turn around what was such a defeated group in just 8 months. And I think you have to consider Essendon as well. They're a good side. They've got class all over the ground and a really potent forward line led by Danaher, Hooker, Fantasia, McDonald, Tip and Woody. Like, their small forwards were very good. And overall, I think they are a finals calibre side and we should hold no shame for losing to them. So, could we have won? Yeah, of course we could have. But in a development season like ours, you have to take a glass half full approach and relish the incremental improvements in that journey that we're on. We won't contend for finals this year, and I think we all recognise that. But turning a 60 or 80 point loss into a near win and to show a wealth of fight is a really big step in the right direction for mine. So that's why I thought it was an honourable loss. But mate, we'll let the listeners decide who won the debate. But yeah, some good points I think from both sides of the argument. And as you said, I think either way you look at it, we're pretty bullish about where the future lies.
Yeah, definitely. This would have been good to get that second win. The confidence would have been sky high after a win like that. But we just got to learn from that and move on to next week.
So next week, as you said, we've got St Kilda in what would be the first game for Victorian fans to come see the Lions. The Saints 0-2, having lost to Melbourne and West Coast, although they probably should have got over West Coast had they made the most of their opportunities earlier in the game. And I think people always complain about the run of the umpires over in the West, but St Kilda fans certainly were upset about that.
Combination of both, I think, over there for the Saints.
Yeah. Do you think we have a chance at Etihad Stadium on Sunday?
Oh, for sure. The way we played for 3 and a bit quarters on the weekend, if we bring that again, absolutely we can. And I think St Kilda does have a very good record at Etihad Stadium, but at the same time, they'll most likely be missing Jack Stephen, their best on bowler, and Nick Rewalt, their fearless leader. So 2 big outs for the Saints.
I think Armitage is still out as well.
So they've probably got a few problems there, the Saints, even though they're expected to be a team on the rise. And I really rated them last year. They had some big wins. But, yeah, those first couple of weeks, things didn't go to plan for them. So I think we're definitely a chance. It's going to be a tough game. St Kilda at Etihad's always a tough game. But, yeah, it would just be great to see us bring that fight and willingness on the road because, yeah, obviously it is hard as a young side to travel well at times. But I think our record has been okay at Etihad without being amazing. Like, over the last couple of years, obviously we haven't won too many games at all, but I think we've had some okay performances at Etihad when you weigh that up with other grounds. So I think we're every chance to get that second win.
Do you foresee any changes? Actually, last week on the podcast, we talked about Essendon small forwards being a real threat, and so it turned out. Fantasia kicked 5.
Yeah,
Donald Tip and Woody was
spot on.
One of the better players on the ground, and Travis Collier was pretty good as well. So Chris Fagan, tune in. But I think one of the threats this weekend will be St Kilda's tall forward line. So on the other end of the spectrum, they've got obviously Paddy McCartan former early round pick. Tim Membray is sort of a handy third, tall. Josh Bruce, really good tall forward as well. Are you worried that the Saints could stretch our defence?
Yeah, with Frost back in, I think in terms of tall defensive forwards, we're probably okay. But yeah, we did get shown up with Essendon small forwards last week, and their pace really worried us, and they're going to worry a lot of sides this year. And they were very impressive, especially with their speed. Zach Merritt was incredible, and Fantasia. I hadn't seen much of him, to be honest, but I was blown away by his performance, as a lot of people would have been.
It was really frustrating.
Yeah, he just didn't miss one. It was very frustrating. But yeah, those tall forwards, they're still pretty young, most of them. But when they get up and going, especially at Etihad as well, they're a real threat. Memory's a very accurate kick at goal.
Yeah,
McCartan's still developing. Hasn't had a good run with injuries, had a few concussions and bad injuries. But yeah, Josh Bruce has been a really good performer. A bit hot and cold, but on his day, he's a real danger. So I think, Frost will definitely keep his spot, and he'll play one of those guys. And probably McStay might get one as well. So I think
you'd swing McStay backwards. Like, he sort of drifted from down back and up front against the Bombers. Would you start him down back? Is that what you're saying?
I think he has to start down back for sure with that 3-pronged forward line. So, yeah, I think with the tall forwards, we're probably okay. So, yeah, it's a tough one. Their midfield probably not quite as potent as Essendon, but they've still got a few threats in there. But, yeah, they are a bit undermanned, St Kilda. So I think if we're going to get them, it's a good time right now.
Yeah, that midfield ascendancy will be a big one as to if we can upset the Saints. You talked about McStay and Frost, two probably borderline-ish selections. Would you foresee any other changes or any changes made at the selection table this week?
Well, we've done well at kicking goals the last couple of weeks, and that has probably been a problem in recent years. But I think with Shaki doing pretty well in the NEFL, he's always a chance to come back in.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's hard to know who to drop at the moment because everyone's really having a crack, and it's like there were stages last year where changes had to be made because we just weren't showing any progression. There wasn't really any signs of a lot of effort there, and there just had to be changes. But at the moment, it's hard to really see any guys dropping out. But I think Shaki's always one that potentially come back in.
Yeah, and as you said, he kicked 4 in the NEFL last weekend.
Yeah.
And what was a win for the Lions reserves against the Swans reserves. The Swans reserves made the grand final last year, so that's good.
Yeah, really good signs to have our NEFL side very competitive. The last few years, we've been on the bottom, near the bottom of the AFL ladder, and haven't done much better in the NEFL as well. But it's just so important to have both your teams up and going. So there's pressure on both sides for spots. So if the NEFL side is playing really well, guys are banging down the door then, and the guys on the senior side are like, got to perform to keep our spot. So that's just a really healthy,
you want that competition
competitive
spots.
state.
That's really it's important for a developing list. But some of the names running around the NEFL on the weekend, it's a shame that the game was changed at the last minute because it would have been really good to see some footage from the game. Like you had Alex Witherden, Jared Berry, Josh Shaki running around, Hugh McLuggage obviously was back, Cedric Cox. So, all our higher draft picks from the last 2 years running around in the twos. It was a pretty good place to be in, actually.
Yeah, Cedric Cox might have been handy on the weekend. I know he's still a developing player, but with his pace down back, he might have been handy on one of those small Essendon forwards.
Yeah, for sure. As we've talked about, the speed of the Essendon forwards definitely found us out, so that might be one in the looking forward next time we come up against a faster forward line. The only change that I could potentially see is maybe giving Jared Berry a run. He had high possession numbers, high marks, I think a fair few tackles as well in the knee
Yeah.
falls. So he could be one that slots in as like a competitive midfield, half back, half forward sort of linking player. I don't know who would make way for him, but I know as a fan it'd be exciting to see one of the draftees as well. Yeah, I mean, Hugh McGluggage was obviously prominent throughout the pre-season as well, so he's every chance to come back in.
Yeah, for sure. Matheson probably still a few weeks away, I think.
With injury, yeah, but the injury list is actually looking the best it has in years. We've only got Skinner, Bundy, and Matheson on there now, and obviously Kean Hanley's on personal leave. But touch wood.
Yeah, definitely touch wood, but it hasn't been like that for a long time. It's usually about 10, 15, 20 deep. So
yeah,
it's a
I did notice
start
actually in the last minute, Darcy Gardner pulled up a bit lame, so that might be one to watch during the week if he's okay. So hopefully he gets up.
A few nervous moments there with Beams. Jeez, when he was down in the middle in the last quarter, I was like, you've got to be joking.
His goals,
the commentators were fearing for him as well, but he was able to come back on and run the game out. So I don't know, he might have just got stomped on his foot or something like that, and it just really stung for a while. But
that was very hard.
God, he's okay. Was it ever?
So before we move on from looking ahead to the Saints this weekend, just get a quick prediction, mate. What are your thoughts on the margin and the winner?
I think it's going to be a pretty tough sort of defensive game. I can't really see a big shootout, even though the Saints do have a pretty decent forward line. I think we might get up by 8 points.
I'm really looking forward to seeing our marking forwards. Like Hipwood and McStay pretty much flew at everything that came in the forward line against the Bombers on a really dry Etihad deck. Like, if some of those marks stuck last weekend, we probably win. So, to see those two up front flying for marks, hopefully clinging them, that's something that really excites me. As we've talked about, I think we're every chance to win this game, especially with the personnel. I think Montagne's actually out as well. We missed that one before when we were talking about that.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a few out the Saints. It's a good time to get them.
So, exactly. If we were going to beat the Saints at Etihad, this is our chance. And I really hope the boys show up because we're a red hot crack. I think we get home by goal in a thriller.
Yeah.
Hipwood can kick a bag.
Take that. Yeah. Hipwood's got to be one of the most exciting players we've seen at the Lions in a very long time.
It's going to be...
He's as exciting a player as a young Jonathan Brown, really.
Yeah, he's just
what he can do with his marking, his running, his kicking, and just at only 19 to be doing what he's doing. Just so much upside there.
He has so many tools, and he was about a foot from getting away from James Kelly on half-back in the fourth quarter and running 70 metres for a goal. You just don't get that sort of speed and acceleration from someone who's over 200 centimetres. I'm just way too excited about Eric Hipwood.
I think most Lions supporters are at the moment.
Before we sign off on episode 2, we're going to talk about the AFLW awards, which rounded out our women's season for the year. So the All-Australians for the Lions were Emily Bates, Sabrina Frederick-Traub, Kate McCarthy, Taylor Harris, and Sam Virgo. Anyone unlucky or lucky to make it out of those in that selection there, mate?
We would have liked to see a few more girls in there, but I think 5 is a really good effort, even though a few of them were on the bench. But, to have 5 in the first team out of 22 is an incredible effort by the girls, and they all deserve their spots. They all had their moments throughout the season. Frederick Traub, Frederick Traub and Taylor Harris, considering how young they are, key position players. The future's so bright there. Absolutely incredible. Frederick Traub in that grand final, she was
big.
Incredible.
We'll talk about the best and fairest later, but I think you could have raffled it off between her and Emily Bates. For All-Australian, for me it was disappointing that there weren't more defenders acknowledged. Like Sam Virgo's obviously a defender, but the Lions had the best defence in the competition, and to have one player make the All-Australian team. That was pretty disappointing for mine. Like, I think Nick
Yeah.
Hildebrand, Leah Kasler. I don't know how Leah Kasler didn't make it. She is, in my view, one of the best defenders in the comp.
Yeah.
So I think that's just me getting upset and chucking a hissy fit. But I think that's something that we probably got, hard done by. The other one actually,
maybe Zilke as well.
Yeah, Emma Zilke was consistent. And the other one that I think a few fans were upset about was missing out on the goal of the year. So Erin Phillips edged out two of our girls in Kate McCarthy and Caitlin Ashmore.
Yeah.
I think we were stiff there.
We're so stiff there. How did Kate McCarthy not win for her goal of the year? That was as good as you'll see in any competition. Favourite. If a man did that, that would be... You'd lock that in for goal of the year. You just don't see it. Just breaking away and sprinting about 80 metres, 80, 90 metres. It's sensational.
I think there was a bit of a love fest for Erin Phillips as well. Like, she was tremendous, and we spoke about her last week, how good she was. But I think by the end of the year, there was a bit of a love-in for Erin Phillips. But we're not bitter, are we?
Come on, Erin. Give the girls some awards. You've got enough already.
Yeah, share it around. So now to the club awards. Emily Bates won the best and fairest, followed by Sabrina Frederick-Traub, and in third place, Emma Zilke. Any complaints there?
No complaints there. Maybe Emily Bates, like a bit of surprise maybe to get the best and fairest, but yeah, obviously all Australian and had a super season and well deserved. So awesome. You could have picked 5, 6, 7 players that were right up there because all the girls had such a amazing campaign, but obviously her consistency won out, and I think a couple of the early games from Frederick-Traub might have cost her. I think she started off maybe a bit slow, but really got into a stride in later rounds. So I think it's a pretty good top 3.
Emily Bates also won the Players Player Award. Most competitive was my girl Leah Kasler. I got no complaints there because, as I just said, she should have been in the All-Australian team. And most courageous was Kate Lutkins. Any comment on those 3, Ollie?
Yeah, really great players there, and they will be around for a long time, as we've spoken about. They've had top seasons, and most courageous with Kate, most competitive. Like, they're tough awards sometimes because they could go to so many players, but yeah, obviously really well deserved.
I think you could have gone most competitive for Brittany Gibson. I remember her bowling over Abby Coleman in the Crows game in the home and away season. That was probably the highlight of the year for me. But
that was outstanding.
The Awful One award, which demonstrates club values, went to Sam Virgo, and the last award was the members' MVP for Kate McCarthy. Kate was a personal favourite of mine, so I've got no complaints there.
Favourite by a lot of people, and obviously, members MVP.
She was like
says it all.
Female reincarnation of Accra, I reckon, because she could just light up the forward line. She had the pace, the skills. I think, it just reminded me of when he was running around doing the amazing
stuff. What if she can do a handstand as well?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Maybe we should follow that up for next year. That's all we've got for this week's show, mate. Hopefully next weekend we're tuning in after a win over the Saints that puts us up 2-1 in the season. I'll speak to you then, mate.
Yeah, fingers crossed for a big game on Sunday. I'll catch you next week.
No worries, mate. See you later.
See ya.